Business in the Okanagan matters. This is Law Talk with lawyers Clay Williams and Tanvir Gill from FH&P Lawyers LLP. They talk business and take your questions at podcast@fhplawyers.com. Now, here's Clay Williams.
Welcome to another edition of FH&P Lawyers Law Talk. I'm Clay Williams. I'm a partner at FH&P Lawyers LLP. With me is Tanvir Gill. Tanvir is an associate here and my usual sidekick and accomplice in this podcast. How are you doing today, Tanvir?
Great, thank you.
So it's pretty exciting. This month is real estate month for FH&P lawyers.
Yep, so summertime is over and people might think that real estate is slowing down and dead, but for the firm, it is real estate month for us. So that means you're going to see a lot of real estate related topics hit our social media posts. We're blogging about it, we're talking about it, and hence our podcast topic today is on real estate as well.
So let's just start. And what are your thoughts on the real estate market right now? Like, what are you seeing coming across your desk?
So I'm a COVID lawyer. So I was called in 2019. So all I ever saw and all I've ever practiced in is the COVID rush, like the multiple offers, subject-free offers, just the insanity of like how many files we had closing monthly, month after month. So things are slow now, and it's odd to me just because I don't know any different than what I was used to. So this is very slow to me, but I still don't think it's that slow in terms of like how, lawyers that are senior like you see it. So you obviously are used to different waves and different times, and you've seen things aside from just COVID. So to me, this is abnormal. It's still busy. Like our November was insane. Just obviously now looking forward, December, January, I don't know. It's just up there. I don't know. I think people that have the money to buy and that have the desire to buy are still buying. But I think there's a lot more up on the market for sale that isn't really being touched just yet or as fast.
Okay, well that's interesting to know, and the point you made about me being a senior lawyer, I guess, and seeing things from the past is one of the things I haven't seen, and I saw in like 2010, 2012 is foreclosures. I haven't seen any foreclosures. Have you had anything come across your desk yet?
No, not yet. I've had realtors send me title here and there that had a mortgage, and then on that mortgage a CPL by a lender registered, meaning there's a certificate of pending litigation, but I haven't seen anything get into the foreclosure process, meaning to court, because once that CPL is filed, we've sort of handled it from there and done a sale, and it's sort of kiboshed. So I haven't seen foreclosures come up as much as what I've heard people thinking that they were going to be. Prevalent.
So things are still ticking along.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that sounds good. So what I thought we'd start with in our first podcast introducing the whole real estate month is just talk about the basics. What is it that a person is going to experience? What steps do they need to go through in a real estate transaction?
Sure. So let's just generally talk about it on either the purchase or the sale end. So, you have a product, you're looking to sell something, whether it is a vacant land, a house, a condo, a farm. There's something there that you're looking to either buy or sell. So typically your first step is to either approach the other party. So either you're a seller and you've been approached by a buyer, or you're a buyer door knocking, and either you're doing that, so you're looking at a private conversation with the other party, or you're working with a realtor who's helping you readily find a place.
What about, though, if you're a purchaser, like, don't you need to get your financing in order? Like, I don't know. Would you go and hire a realtor first, or would you make sure that you can qualify for the financing?
I think the majority of people start with the realtor, and then the realtor says to them, hey, you should think through having a pre-approval. So if you're going to be buying and we're looking at houses, I know what to show you, and I know what not to, take you to, and what your sort of max affordability is. So you can people are typically starting that conversation quite early with both parties, so realtors and mortgage brokers or a bank.
And the other thing that you said I wanted to explore a little bit is, you can approach another party directly.
Oh, yeah.
And boy, I see that a lot.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing a lot of that now too, because people might be, seeing places that they like, or they might have a friend or a neighbor and they're thinking about it, and now is sort of that time where they're taking their time to think it through and then present an offer. So they might not be working with realtors. So we've gotten a lot of private deals come through, and a lot of people will just reach out and say, here's this contract I was just given by my neighbor who wants to buy my property. What do you think? And sometimes they're really bad. Like, they're horribly drawn up. Like, they look like something that were done off of like Law Depot, forums or Google forms. And honestly, maybe people are even turning to Chat GPT. I don't know. But there's some forms that come in that are private that are just horrible. So that's always an option for people out there to do a private form. We always suggest send it over to us first before you sign. It's like 99% of the time they're always signed, but send it over beforehand so we can go through the terms and the clauses and make sure that, if there are certain really important clauses we need in there, they're in there.
And I think a lot of people don't realize that you can do that.
Yeah.
You can go ahead and approach your neighbor if you're at a party and somebody's saying, I'm thinking of selling my place. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with kind of making a tentative deal with that person.
Yeah.
And, what we do quite a bit of is doing the contract of purchase and sale.
Yep.
And we use the same forms that the realtors use.
Yeah, we have the same form available to us through the Bar Association, and that form is actually just recently updated too. So it's a updated, relevant form that we will start with. Sometimes if someone's given me their own form of purchase and sale agreement, I'll leave it. I won't, redraft the thing, but we will just revise it with whatever we feel is missing or needs to be edited.
And one of those things, I guess, would be conditions.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the typical conditions that you would want to see in a contract?
So if I'm working with a buyer, usually financing, inspection, appraisal, access, and then for some things that they might need to rely on, like a property disclosure statement, we want provided by the seller. Those are usually the most common 4 or 5.
Yeah, and so the next step in a purchase would be waiving those conditions, doing your due diligence, and then you've got an unconditional contract with a closing date. So,
so people are always assume that the deal is done when the other party has accepted that offer. They don't realize that initial offer is just that. It's just an offer to purchase. So if they've accepted that, you have to then meet the conditions date. Unless there are no conditions, you're working your way to satisfying yourself that you have that financing and your inspection is good. And if you're looking for financing and the bank wants to see a certain number on that appraisal, that number has come back and the bank has signed off on that appraisal. So once you've accomplished those things and removed those subjects and your offer has no more subjects, it is legally binding, meaning the seller has to sell and the buyer has to buy as long as there's no more conditions left on that contract.
And we as lawyers have a role in that process before the conditions are waived.
Yeah.
And so what kind of a role do you have in that?
So we can help draft. Do you mean drafting, like the supplemental
Well, I'm just
rules?
wondering about strata forms and
Oh,
that type of thing.
So we review a lot of documents with clients. So we'll review title, we'll go through the PDS, we'll look at strata documents, whatever it is that the client's worried about or concerned about, we'll go through that stuff and make sure that we have went over it with you, help you understand things in strata documents like depreciation reports and all of that fun stuff.
Because that can be really important.
Yep.
Especially in the strata stuff. Boy, that's something that we hope that people will come and talk to us about.
Yeah, and when it comes to buying in a strata, especially for people who've never lived in a strata before, it can be a lot. It can be overwhelming because their packages are quite heavy. So typically when you're working with a realtor, they'll request a full package. It'll come with meeting minutes for, a few years. So that's documents right there. Depreciation reports, meaning what the condition of the units are and the entire building, the common property, the units themselves, and then it'll come with what else does it come with? Strata Form Bs telling you what the payments look like and all that stuff.
Parking, storage lockers, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so here's the question that I get a lot. When do I come see you?
whenever, sooner than later, but honestly, whenever. We get clients at all different stages of these transactions, but it's not a good idea to sign off on things and agree to things and then look for legal advice after. So ask earlier if you can.
But I guess what I meant by that is, when do they come in and actually sign the documents for the quote? Because I've got a lot of times people say, I just bought a house. Can I see you next week? And realistically, that's just not the way it's done. Okay, we won't get it all together. So
typically, the offer process, all the revising that we do back and forth, and anything to do with the contract initially. I mean, sure, we can witness signatures on there, but we're typically e-signing stuff like that. And then when it comes to meeting to sign off on the purchase or the sale, you're usually meeting with your lawyer 2 to 3 business days before the completion date itself to sign off on the closing documents. And if you're on the buyer side, you want to give your bank time to review the signed mortgage documents. So you're typically only meeting with your lawyer one time, and that is 2 to 3 business days before the completion date.
Yeah, and what we do then is we change title, move money, and hopefully you end up with some cash in your pocket and no obligation for a mortgage, or if you're a seller, or you own a piece of property.
Those are like the rare files, right? Where people are doing a refi and then a purchase, and at the end I'm like, oh, you've refinanced and you've bought, or you've sold and you've bought, and here's your check for money coming back to you. Those are done well.
Well, and I remember in the 2010 when some people's mortgages were higher than the value of their property, but I haven't seen that yet. So
I was still in high school, I think, in 2010.
Well,
so I have no idea what you're talking about.
So, all right. Well, I think let's wrap that up and stay tuned for another exciting topic in the world of real estate as FH&P continues with Real Estate Month.
FH&P lawyers are rooted in community and ready to help. Send your business law questions to podcast@fhplawyers.com.